All right, this is going to be the most beautiful chapel I've ever been in, filled with the weirdest pagan art.
I'm Jessica, the museum guide. Today I'm here at Fitzrovia Chapel and I'm going to take you on a tour of the Ben Edge art show all about folklore Britain, held inside this stunningly beautiful architectural jewel and a true hidden gem in London.
Today, we are going to explore the breathtaking Fitzrovia Chapel and all of its history and architectural grandeur. Then, we're going to focus in on the art exhibit being held here today, Children of Albion by Ben Edge. I'll explain some of the weird and wonderful folk histories and the customs behind them that we're going to see in these paintings. I'm going to detail some of the canvases, but leave others a delightful mystery. You can head to Ben Edge's website to learn even more. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm delighted to have you here, and I hope that you'll stick around. If you're a regular viewer and you'd like to see more videos, I release a full-length extra video every month over on my Patreon channel. All kinds of cool stuff that you'd like. But let's get into the building itself. I mean, wow. This is the Byzantine-inspired Fitzrovia Chapel, built in the 1890s to be the chapel for the Middlesex Infirmary, so called because London at that time was part of the county of Middlesex. The chapel was built to be a place of prayer and solace for the patients and their families, and to serve as a memorial to Major Alexander Henry Ross, chairman of the Board of Hospital Governors for 21 years. Architect John Loughborough Pearson, a noted Gothic revivalist, was commissioned to design this, a rather small building in the heart of the hospital complex. He used to ask himself of his designs, "Does it send you to your knees?" Pearson was quite old at this point when he began the construction in 1891, and his son and apprentice Frank took over when he passed away in 1897, combining his own designs with his father's. The result is kind of a Byzantine/Gothic-inspired marble masterpiece that took more than 25 years to complete with more than 40 types of marble. Now we'll get back to the architecture here, but let's detail the history of the hospital a little bit. It opened in the 1740s during a big boom in hospital construction around London. Remember, for 6 centuries, London only had 2 main hospitals, St. Bartholomew's and St. Thomas's. I detail this in my video about the history of surgery. In 1719, the Westminster Hospital was founded, followed quickly by Guy's, St. George's, and the London. The Middlesex Infirmary was founded as a charity for the, quote, sick and lame of Soho, but it also included the slums of 7 Dials around St. Giles in the Fields. I mean, now that's a very posh area, but it was slums. It consisted of 2 small terraced houses in Windmill Street, off Tottenham Court Road, leased from Mr. Goodge. You might recognize that name from the nearby Goodge Street and its tube station. The hospital then moved to Mortimer Street in Fitzrovia in 1754. However, by 1924, the buildings were declared structurally unsafe and demolished, and they were rebuilt before closing for good in 2005. The services were absorbed by UCLH. The old building was demolished in 2008, and a whole new development of offices and flats opened in 2016. Thankfully, the chapel was spared, and it now sits amongst the modern buildings. By the 2010s, the chapel was in poor condition, and so conservation architects Cerne and Partners carried out a £2 million restoration work between 2013 and 2015, especially on the roof, where rainwater had caused some serious damage to up to 70% of the ceiling tiles. Now, let's look around the chapel itself. You're going to see glimpses of Ben Edge's art, and I promise you, we're going to come to that soon. But let's enter this antechamber, or the narthex. We can see these incised marble plaques commemorating the lives of many staff from Middlesex Hospital. The memorials include Major Ross, to whom the building is a memorial, Lord Webb Johnson, who supported the chapel's initial construction, and Dame Diana Beck, who was the first female neurosurgeon in all of Europe. The ceiling is certainly the most breathtaking aspect of the chapel, but it was not the original design. John Loughborough Pearson's original design was an open oak ceiling in the main space, with a golden mosaic vaulting only over the chancel. His son began replacing the wooden vaults with these full mosaics in 1929. The semicircular baptistry here was built in memorial to Sir John Bland Sutton. He was a surgeon and lecturer at the hospital. The blue gradient is meant to evoke ancient baptistries in the Emilia-Romagna region of northern Italy. I mean, you can really see the similarities. The 4 stained glass windows here depict soldier saints: Joan of Arc, St. George, St. Alban, and St. Martin. They are meant to be a memorial to the dead of World War I. The chapel font is carved from a solid block of green marble, and it's a copy of the font in Istanbul's Hagia Sophia. Look up over the organ loft. There are mosaics spelling out the Latin phrase Gloria in excelsis Deo et in terra pax omnibus bonae voluntatis, which translates as glory to God in the highest and peace to all men on earth. Just opposite the baptistry, we can see a large mosaic roundel depicting St. Barnabas and vaults over the nave featuring mosaic busts of the 12 apostles. And here we can see an inscription in the marble wall commemorating the lying in state of poet and writer Rudyard Kipling in the chapel after his death at the Middlesex Hospital. Okay, now that we've had a look around the building itself, let's focus in on the art by Ben Edge and this wonderful exhibition of his paintings dealing with British folklore. If you enjoy this foray into British folk traditions, you'll really like my video about bizarre British Christmas traditions. A lot of these figures get tied up and blended with Christmas and the Advent period, and I cover them extensively in that video. Now, Ben Edge is based in North London. In his own words, he explores the connections between folklore, identity, nature, and oral storytelling traditions. As we will see, his work blends a punk rock ethos with folklore and British paganism, all with a sense of childlike wonder. The inspiration for this show occurred 10 years ago, when Edge serendipitously witnessed a Druid ceremony at London's Tower Hill on the spring equinox. He told The Guardian, "As I came out of the station, I saw in the distance this line of people in white cloaks walking past a red phone box, a KFC, a Wetherspoons. They assembled in a circle and started talking about this idea of reconnecting to nature, and that London will one day be reclaimed by nature. They were putting seeds on the ground. It was a real awakening for me." Let's just be clear for a minute here, though. There is a kind of person who gets very into British folklore who is also dog whistling their yearning for an idealized and also historically inaccurate white British past. Just know, I may love wassailing with hooded horses in Kentish orchards, but my politics are very left. And after reading his recent interview in The Guardian, I'm convinced that we don't need to worry about Ben Edge. I think he's the same as me. But like me, he's fascinated in these pre-Christian, pre-Roman bits of indigenous Britannic culture that have managed to survive and imbue our modern world, even if many of them have been reimagined and idealized by Victorians and hippies and artists and museum guides. We're going to see a lot of masks on our tour today, so I thought it was fitting that the sponsor of today's video is Foreo. They're the creator of this, the FAQ 202 silicone LED mask, and they're offering huge Black Friday savings right now. I'm on camera a lot, and so naturally I want to look and feel my best. I'm not always wearing this mask after all. But you also know that I can be a bit of a skeptic, and I believe in science-based evidence. And honestly, that is why I genuinely recommend the FAQ 202 mask. It has clinically proven results. It uses 8 different wavelengths, including NIR. That stands for near infrared photon, and it's the most effective light treatment on the market for penetrating the skin. It addresses acne, wrinkles, dullness, hyperpigmentation. This is like going to an expensive spa 3 times a week from the comfort of my own home. It's wireless, lightweight, and leaves my eye area free, so I can use it while I'm doing things around the house. I'm not tethered to a lead. I connect my Foreo mask to their app for preset treatments to tackle my specific skin concerns, but you can also use it without the app. I tend to use the NIR. obviously, but I also really like the orange light. After just 5 minutes of use, I really noticed that my skin feels smoother and softer. If you'd like to check out Foreo's amazing Black Friday deals, click the link in my description box. And don't forget to use my code 35Jessica for an additional 35% off, even on products that are already on sale. That means you can get up to 50% off on Foreo products. But now, let's head back to Fitzrovia Chapel, where we'll soon see some very different masks. Now let's start here with one of the most striking pieces. This statue is a representation of Edge himself atop a white horse. In some ways, this evokes equestrian monuments and grand military statues, and it definitely draws the movie Midsummer to mind. Now, I think they were inspired by this, not the other way around, by the way. Here, Edge is depicting himself as the Garland King, who rides through the Derbyshire village of Castleton each May. It is likely that the custom of the Garland King originates with the celebration of the restoration of King Charles II in 1660. However, over time, people began adding to this mythos, and now some people believe that it is the remnant of a more ancient form of nature worship or even human sacrifice. There's Midsummer again. The king wears this beehive-shaped frame of flowers topped with an exceptional little bouquet called the Queen. Then the king and his consort, called the Lady, so as to not confuse her with the flowers, they dress in Stuart costume and mount their horses to lead a procession through the village, which also includes little girls with maypoles, and then the Queen, the flowers, are removed and placed on the war monument, and the rest of the garland is strung up on the church until the flowers wilt. By the way, if you like Ben's shoes, these are called creepers, and you can actually buy a limited edition pair. Let's move over to the apse of the chapel and to this, the largest painting in the exhibition, itself called the Children of Albion. There is so much going on in this piece. I'll quote The Guardian here in their piece about the show. These days, the word Albion is more readily associated with white supremacy than the universal vision of humanity proposed by the Romantic poet and artist William Blake. But Edge, inspired by Blake, represents Albion as a beneficent figure, presiding over the vast oil painting like the risen sun. The Guardian wrote that it evokes Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights, and I can really see that. There's just so much to see and look at. Edge says, quote, "In this post-Brexit era, we're all grappling with who we are as a country. I had to paint Children of Albion because I needed to puzzle it all out. We can see Stonehenge, Viking raids, the miners' strike, Morris dancing, the slave trade, Margaret Thatcher, Mary Lwyd, mummers, Tudor roses, literally, that and so much more that have shaped what this country is today." Now, you've probably been catching glimpses of this old girl throughout the video thus far. If you're not familiar with Mary Lwyd, she may have given you a fright, and that's what she intends to do. Mary Lwyd hails from South Wales. She is a hobby horse topped with a horse's skull, bedecked with ribbons and sometimes glass eyes, paraded around by a wassailer hidden under a sackcloth. But while wassailing is a very old tradition, the Mary Lwyd is a more recent addition to this island's lore. The first written record of the Welsh custom debuts around 1800, although some folklorists believe that it does have pre-Christian origins, despite a lack of medieval references, while others think it has pagan Norse origins. It's more likely to have emerged in the late 18th century when hobby horses became fashionable with the social elite. Once the wassailers arrive at your doors, they would sing and dance and ask for entry. The residents were expected to deny them entry in a good-natured way, and then the Mary Lwyd runs around, snapping its jaws at children and tapping on the doors and the windows. She menaces you until you relent and invite the wassailers inside for food, drink, and cheer. How I love her. Here, Ben Edge has done something really cool. He has combined our lovely Mary with the tradition of the Pearly kings and queens. See, they originated in 19th century Victorian London, evolving from coster kings and queens, who were elected as leaders of London's street traders, the costermongers. Costard being an apple and monger being a seller. But they sold all kinds of things. Today, Pearly kings and queens are known for their elaborate outfits, which are decorated with thousands of mother-of-pearl buttons. This practice dates back to a man called Henry Croft. The London costermongers decorated their trousers at the seams with pearl buttons that they found on the ground. In the late 1870s, Croft adapted this to create a sequin suit to draw attention to himself and aid his fundraising activities. I mean, this is Riz. Am I too old to say that? The Pearlys are heavily associated with the East End, but you do see Pearlys in other parts of London too. Today there are around 30 Pearly families who all raise money for charity and turn up at events throughout the city. I can't believe this is the first time they're turning up on my channel. When I see the Pearlys, I feel starstruck. Now, Ben Edge calls this art piece the Merry Lwyd of Albion, as we can see with the buttons, and it has the white horse of Uffington in the middle. The white horse is a prehistoric hill figure found in Oxfordshire, dating to between 1380 and 550 BCE. So it's around 3,000 years old. It's 110 meters long, that's 360 feet, created from deep trenches filled with crushed white chalk. She also has a design of the Cerne Abbas giant, and we'll talk about him soon. Look here at the Sheela Nagig on Mary Lwyd's Pearly cloak. She also has her own painting entitled Earth Mother. A Sheela Nagig is a carving of a woman displaying an exaggerating vulva. Mainly from the medieval period, these are architectural grotesques. That is, carvings meant to ward off evil, found throughout most of Europe, but predominantly in England, Ireland, France, and Spain. This is one of the most famous. This is a 12th century Sheela Nagig on the church at Kilpick in Herefordshire. Occasionally they're found with a male counterpart, and they're quite similar to hunky punks, which are short squatting figures found as grotesques in Somerset. Remember, a grotesque is a decoration purely for visual effect, while a gargoyle acts as a waterspout. Most theories state that they were meant to keep evil spirits away as a kind of apotropaic charm. They're often positioned over doors or windows to protect the openings into buildings. The idea is that the female genitalia, laid bare in such a frank way for a non-sexual and non-birthing purpose, was so abject that even the devil himself would be repelled. Some also believe that their presence is meant to show female lust as hideous and sinfully corrupting in its own right. I mean, just look at this illustration. However, scholars Joanne McMahon and Jack Roberts believe that these carvings are remnants of a pre-Christian fertility or mother goddess religion. They cite that the Sheela Nagigs are often different stone from the surrounding church building, and so they could have been prized off of different structures. Lots to think about. That's what Ben Edge intends with this piece. Now, his Sheela has a vulva that's more like a stone-walled cave structure, inviting us inside. This is a direct reference to the West Kennet Long Barrow, one of the longest and most impressive Neolithic chambered tombs in Britain. You can see the similarities here. Now, he's also included a green man, a medieval image of nature that saw a huge resurgence in the Victorian era, and the Cerne Abbas giant. He represents the male counterpart to all of the Sheela's female energy. He's a real hill figure located in Dorset. While no written records of his presence exist before the 17th century, some recent testing has suggested an origin between the years of 700 and 1100. That may be close to the 10th century date of the founding of nearby Cerne Abbey. Below Sheela, we can see a self-portrait of Ben. He has styled himself as the green man with the vines twisting in and out of his mouth, about whom he says, "The green man reminds us that we are all part of nature and most importantly, not above it." Behind him is the city of London, who he says is, quote, believed to have been named by the Druids as Landin. To his left is a depiction of St. Dunstan and the devil. I love St. Dunstan as a Canterbury guide. St. Dunstan was the Archbishop of Canterbury from 960 to 978, but while living as a religious hermit earlier in his life, he was known for metalworking. He's famous in folklore for defeating the devil by grabbing his nose with hot blacksmith tongs and or attaching horseshoes to his feet. The devil was so desperate to remove the shoes that he agreed to give a wide berth to any home that hung a horseshoe above the door. You can learn more about St. Dunstan in my video about macabre Canterbury. Okay, now on to this amazing guy. This is the Dorset Ooser. He's from the Melbury Osmond village in Dorset. He might have been part of a custom called charivari, skimmity riding, or rough music. I love those. In these rituals, a perceived wrongdoer would be paraded through town and locals would create effigies of them and of monsters, bang pots and pans, and just overall mock them. You might also notice a similarity between the Ooser and a mummer's mask. He's really part of that broader tradition. Now, sadly, this specific mask went missing in 1897, but it was reproduced in 1975 using historical photographs. Of course, he was also the image used on the cover of the legendary book, Folklore, Myths and Legends of Great Britain. Anyone have an old copy kicking around in their house they want to send me? Today, this mask is used by the Wessex Morrismen who dance in the May Day festivities at the Cerne Abbas Giant. I need to go this year. I'm planning to go to Hastings in 2026, but I think Dorset might be calling my name. Here's just a bit of footage, by the way, from the May Day Jack in the Green in Whitstable in 2024. It poured, as you can see. Ah, nice. Boss Morris. I saw them dance at the Green Man Festival this year. Boss Morris are a female Morris dancing troupe founded in 2015 in Stroud, Gloucestershire. Boss Morris is one of the leaders of Prog Morris. They blend current pop culture with the ancient symbolism, folk art, and traditions of Morris dancing. Behind them are some costumed and masked characters. They could be called guisers, as in disguisers, or maybe even mummers if it's around Christmas. Mummers' plays are another folk custom that I cover at length in my video about the Museum of the Home at Christmas. Traveling bands of actors called mummers would travel from door to door enacting mummers' plays. They are also very evocative of the kinds of masks and costumes worn in, what else? The Wicker Man. How has it taken me this long to bring up the Wicker Man? Now this painting is so cool. This painting is called John Barleycorn Must Die. The scene takes place in Whittlesey, near Peterborough in Cambridgeshire, each January on the day after Plough Monday. That's the first Monday after 12th night. Phew. One of the local men dresses up in straw, and the locals call him a straw bear. Don't get this mixed up with Germany. They have their own straw bears, part of Fasching or Christmas processions. See, so much of this stuff gets mixed up with Christmas. The next Straw Bear event in Whittlesey is coming up soon. It's January 16th, 17th, and 18th of 2026. You can see some of the Morris troops here at last year's event. There's a little Mary Lwyd in the background. I love these paintings. Here's another self-portrait. This one's called Dreaming at Rudston Monolith. The Rudston Monolith is the tallest prehistoric standing stone in Britain. It's a massive block of grey sandstone that stands at almost 8 meters high. That's about 25 feet. Estimated to weigh a whopping 26 tons. Now, while it may look just like a block of stone, there is a reason that Ben Edge is looking at it with such awe. It was erected here in either the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. That's sometime between like 3,000 and 4,000 years ago. It was likely quarried more than 10 miles away in the Cayton Bay, but it may have actually been transported here glacially. Wow. As we can see, it sits in the churchyard of All Saints Church. That church is nearly 1,000 years old, built during the Norman period around 1100, but the stone had already been standing here for like 3,000 years when this site was Christianized. Again, no wonder that Ben is dreaming here in this painting. This painting is called The Risen Sun at Avebury. Avebury is a Neolithic henge monument containing 3 stone circles, all mixed in and around the village of Avebury in Wiltshire. Not only is it one of the best known prehistoric sites in Britain, it's home to the largest megalithic stone circle in the world. I haven't been here since I was still in my master's, so let me know if you'd be interested in a video about Stonehenge and Avebury. Of course, today these sites are really the home of the modern British pagan movement and religion. I don't just mean people like me who have a real passion for the archaeology and the history and the fun of it, but those who have a spiritual practice based on this island's Celtic and Druidic past. These sites are thronged on the solstice, for example. Here in the painting, we can see a man dowsing. That is a type of divination where one searches for water with wooden or metal rods. And here's a very medieval devil. Edge has painted him in this style, drawing from this 1470s era French treatise on the devil. You can see that the devil has another face in his groin. A decade later, Hans Memling also depicts the devil this way. This is a detail from his work Earthly Vanity and Divine Salvation. Now here's another devil with a bum face. Here he is at the Devil's Den. This is the remnant of a Neolithic burial chamber known as a dolmen on the Fifield Downs in Wiltshire, not too far from Avebury and Stonehenge. It's said in local folklore that the devil himself arrives with 8 white oxen at midnight every night to try to pull off the capstone to no avail. The lore also states that a white rabbit with fiery eyes sits on top to encourage and advise the devil. According to local belief, if a good child runs around the devil's den 7 times, then nothing will happen. But if a bad child does the same, they'll be met by a fire-breathing toad. This country is wild, man. Now this has got to be one of my favorites. This is Turning the Devil's Stone, and this takes place on bonfire night in a village called Shebir in West Devon. See, underneath an old oak tree in the village square, you'll find a sarsen. That isn't a stone from this area. It's instead quartz composite, and the local stone is mostly sandstone and shale. Centuries ago, this must have been the catalyst for a strange ritual. The local belief that it was dropped upon the devil after a celestial battle with the archangel Michael. Every year it is turned to make sure that the old devil stays put underneath. The crowd chants, turn the stone, as the men use crowbars to work away at it. Some say it's the remnants of a pagan altar stone, and others say that an Anglo-Saxon parliament gathered around it. I love this picture from 1946. I've had such a magical time exploring this chapel, not only for its beautiful architecture and the fact it's such a hidden gem, but also looking at Ben Edge's work with childlike glee and wonder.
Well, that's the end of our tour here at Fitzrovia Chapel. Again, I want to say thank you so much, and I'll see you the next time I'm at the museum.